Buonasera, Picciotti. I'm Mimo Quattararo, and tonight I'll tell you about Sam Giancana, the Chicago boss who romanced the stars, Sinatra, the Kennedys, Marilyn, and played footsie with the CIA, Cuba, and American power before dying in his own kitchen with sausages hissing on the stove. Winter, Chicago, 1960. The wind bit like a jealous dog, and the streets carried rumors like they carried snow. I was a young earner out of Brooklyn, sent west to shake hands, deliver envelopes, and learn how the outfit did things when you measured a man by how quiet he kept. They called him Mooney to his face if you were family, Mr. Giancana if you weren't. I met him at a joint off Cicero. Dark wood, red boots, a jukebox that knew better than to play too loud. He wore a neat gray suit and that permanent half smile that told you he'd already counted your heartbeats. He took me in like a nephew. "Mimo," he said, "you Sicilians from New York, you still hold a door with your shoulder, eh?" I nodded, paisa. I was there to carry messages between Brooklyn and Chicago. Nothing fancy, just weight with legs. The first night, he poured espresso in little cups, the kind that make your hands smell like burnt sugar and steel. And he told me who was singing where, who was calling who, which politicians were learning to play nice. Everything is show business, he said, even politics. Especially politics. You want stars? Wait, mamma mia. Sinatra glided through that world like a shark in a tux. One night I'm backstage at Villa Venice in suburban Chicago, 1962. The crowd sweating money, and Frankie's voice is melting the walls. I'm holding a velvet rope like it's the last piece of the cross. After the show, Sinatra slips past, gives Mooney a hug, the kind you give a godfather you owe everything to. There's a lady with him, pretty as new money. Phyllis, the kind of doll that made a room behave. We went for steak at 3 a.m, Sinatra humming, Mooney chewing slow, me watching the door. Stars didn't fall around Sam. They orbited. A year later, I drove north to a lodge on the lake where the names on the door were brighter than the moon. Cal Never, Sinatra's place. The weekend was a circus, blue smoke, white teeth, black cars. I caught a glimpse of Marilyn in a white scarf slipping through a hallway like a ghost who knew she'd been invited. People talk. They always talk. "You see that?" a kid whispered to me. "That's a whole country in one hallway." I shrugged. In our life, proximity ain't proof, and rumors don't need witnesses. But I remember Mooney looking at the water like he could see ripples in Washington from there. Before the election, Sam worked the levers. "Chicago lights up when I say," he told me, tapping his cigarette on a saucer. He said it soft, not bragging. Deals were made in kitchens, not ballrooms. Family unions, ward bosses, priests who liked their envelopes fat. Everybody got a taste. And Jack, the golden boy, he looked good on TV. When he won, we poured grappa and kissed cheeks. To the Irish prince, Sam toasted. Next day, the phone rang hotter than a stove burner. Friendships in that town age quick. RFK started swinging a hammer at our heads like we owed him rent. I watched Sam's smile turn into something thin. Betrayal, he said, more to himself than to me. Even from brothers. Especially from brothers. Then came the spooks. One night in Miami, 61, I get told to drive to a motel that smelled like chlorine and secrets. Inside, there's a gentleman with clean nails and no name. He called himself Mr. Howard. The heat was mean. I could hear airplanes chewing the sky. We have a common interest, he said. Cuba. Cuba. The word tasted like burnt sugar and bad luck. I knew the players. Johnny Rosselli with his silk grin. Santo Trafficante with his quiet eyes. All the boys who used to sit pretty in Havana before Fidel kicked the tables. Mr. Howard slid a package across the bedspread like it was a communion plate. I didn't ask what was inside. I just watched Sam watching him. You want a favor, Sam said. You want something that never happened. The man didn't blink. Exactly. We met again in a bungalow near Miami Springs. I saw more suits without names. Federal haircuts. Shoes that didn't like dirt. They talked about patriotism and deniability like they were menu items. We talked about restaurants and shipping routes like we were discussing Sunday sauce. It was a dance. I carried envelopes sealed like tombs. I took a phone call in a pay booth while an iguana watched me from a fence like a federal witness. We all understood each other. They had a beard in Havana they wanted shaved. We had a business in exile we wanted back. History calls it intrigue. We called it Tuesday. Back in Chicago, Mooney's world got louder. The feds bugged, tapped, harassed. He laughed it off at first. Cackle with no mirth. I remember a dinner in Cicero, 63. The candles low, the sausages fat. Sam twirled a fork, talking about how Sinatra lost his Nevada license over who stayed where and who smiled at who. They don't forgive glamour, he said. They fear it. Then he put a St. Anthony medal next to his plate and patted it twice, like a ritual. This little guy's heard more confessions than the cathedral, he joked. But his eyes were tired. There was a night after Dallas when the bar went silent without anyone asking. We watched the TV flicker like a dying neon sign. Nobody said, "I told you." Nobody said anything. The country shifted under our feet. Later, whispers about Marilyn got darker, more poisonous. I heard 5 versions from 10 mouths, all of them certain. Me? I just remembered the white scarf and the way she didn't meet anyone's eyes. Time moves. Mooney went to Mexico, back and forth, wherever the heat wasn't smothering. When he needed something quiet, I was the guy with the car and a forgotten face. Years later, 75. He's back in Oak Park. Newly thin, newly careful. Talking to lawyers. Church committee. Senators with clean shirts asking dirty questions. I went to see him 1 week before it happened. Kitchen lights soft, sausages on, the whole place smelling like Sunday and danger. He cracked eggs into a pan and told me, they want me to talk about ghosts. What do I say, Memo? That a country runs on favors? I told him to keep his mouth shut. He smirked. I've been quiet since the womb. The night they did him, it was summer, and the crickets were loud. I wasn't there, grazie a Dio, but I saw the kitchen after. Police tape and flies. The skillet burned black, sausages shriveled. The tile had 7 bad flowers on it. The basement door that didn't stop anything. I knew the smell of finality. Whoever pulled the trigger knew his routine, his trust, his habit of turning his back to the stove. Family work or government work, or some blend of the two. Chicago knows how to mix cocktails like that. Mooney's gone, someone told me on the curb, eyes on their shoes. I nodded and felt older than my birth certificate. At the wake, men who'd sworn to never blink kept blinking. Sinatra didn't show. Smart. A priest said the right words. I lit a candle and watched the flame bend when the door opened and closed. The story started before the dirt settled. Who ordered it? Who paid? Who smiled? Me? I kept to the back. Touched my St. Anthony twice like Sam used to. And remembered him stirring sauce in a skillet. The oil shimmering. The room buzzing with names that don't belong in kitchens. Who asked me what it meant? Mooney and the stars, the president, the blonde, the spooks. It meant America showing its cards while pretending it wasn't playing. Sam loved the spotlight because he knew the darkness owned the room. He reached for the glamorous because power feels cleaner when it sings. But in our life, the applause stops and the bill comes. The lights go cold. You're left in a kitchen where the only honest sound is sausage hissing and a heartbeat that doesn't know it's done. Honor is keeping your mouth closed when opening it would buy you everything except yourself. Betrayal is the tax for dancing with men who will smile over your grave. In the end, what keeps you safe is the same thing that keeps you lonely. Silence.